there's a need for, like you said, staying in your lane. And
Mhm.
it doesn't mean you never branch out. It just means when you are in a position of authority, you do not co-opt the authority from something else that you're good
Mhm.
at into that thing. And so
Right.
if you are a good preacher and somebody comes to you for counseling, a good preacher who's not a trained counselor, the number one thing they should do is refer. They should have a
Yes.
database of good counselors, and they say, "Oh, tell me your problem. Okay, here's I want you to talk to this person because I think
Hmm.
they can help you with." And then
Right.
they it's like they take the person by the hand and they lead them to somebody who can help them, like
And
metaphorically.
teachers should do that too.
Yes.
When I get questions and people ask me something, I say, I have never really studied that book of the Bible in depth. I would feel uncomfortable. But here, sometimes I will refer them to one of your videos
Mm,
or I've got like 5 teachers that I'm in an accountability group with.
mm-hmm.
And I'll send them somewhere else.
Yeah.
Or I'll send them to someone else's book, but I will not try to teach stuff that I don't know.
Yeah.
It's it's a bad precedent to set.
Yes. It's so easy though. It's so tempting because
I know.
you can easily fire off an opinion, and if you don't make it clear that it's just an opinion and you have not done the deep dive work, then people will listen to it and
Yeah,
that'll be
and
good enough for them. Well, that's what so
yeah.
and so believes, so works for me.
Yeah, I've gotten some really, really bad scriptural guidance from trusting the people that really
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, it's well, and it's especially important like when it comes to issues that are well, one, it's important for issues that are life and death, like mental health and counseling and those type of
Yeah.
issues. When you deal with anything involving mental health, abuse, manipulation, any of that kind of stuff, it's not just well, if I get it wrong, no big deal. Like
Yeah.
no, people's lives are on the
Pretty
line,
big deal.
and the church has an obligation and pastors have an obligation to get their people the help they need and know that they are not the help that their people need sometimes. But
Well,
that takes putting your ego in check and
and you and
saying,
I both know how dangerous it is to talk about mental health
mm-hmm,
in the body of Christ.
yeah, the stigma is
Um,
unfortunate and very real.
when in 2021, I was just doing way too much. And most people in the ministry are doing way too much.
Yeah.
It's just how we're wired. And I had a very public nervous breakdown.
Mm,
And I was very public about it
uh,
because I don't like secrets. And if it's almost like I like to poke the bear,
mm,
even when I've had a nervous breakdown.
yeah.
And I went through it. I went through months of trying to heal on my own,
Mm,
just laying off the work, doing absolutely nothing but staring at the wall all day, working
mm,
puzzles frantically for months.
mm,
Then I got on medication because I wasn't getting any better.
yeah.
Still took me another 3 months, and now I'm doing really great.
Mm,
And I have really forced the people who follow me and who listen to me to deal with the fact that I am mentally ill.
mm,
It's under control right now. But if I were to go off my meds, because I actually tried last year and I put on weight like crazy when
mm,
I start, and I didn't even notice.
mm,
That's just how I was dealing with the increasing anxiety.
yeah.
So often, and I'm barren too, so I've got the bifecta of things that aren't supposed to go wrong with believers. You're
Right.
supposed to be able to have a ton of babies, and you're supposed to have a sound mind, but the brain and the womb are both organs and not
Mm,
magic fairy boxes that just automatically work if you're living a good life. And
yeah.
so I make people deal with that. It's like, if you respect me, if you love me, if you get something from my teachings, well, you have to accept these things about me too. And
Mm,
you've either got to decide that I have terrible fruit and I'm cursed by God, or maybe the things that people are saying about people who are mentally ill and barren aren't founded in any kind of logical truth or spiritual truth.
yeah. Well, that does a lot to break the stigma. for people seeing like that resonates with me well. I've always been very vocal about my depression, anxiety, mental illness.
Mhm.
That even the word mental illness people cringe at, and I'm like, okay,
It's
call it what you want, but it just means like your brain chemistry is off. Like your brain is not working as well as people have heart conditions, people have, like back conditions, people there's all kinds of illnesses. So the fact that mental illness gets a different stigma than any other part of your body illness is something that I am like you. I want people to know. I don't want to say there's nothing wrong with you. There is something wrong, but it's a health issue. Just
yeah.
like there's something wrong with somebody who is, in a wheelchair or who has to have like a breathing tube or a breathing apparatus or something. There's something wrong, but there's nothing spiritually wrong. There's nothing wrong with your worth, your dignity, your humanity. It's just something's not working right.
Why is it any different than my high blood pressure?
Exactly. You deal
You
with
know?
it, you treat it, you use
Yeah.
medication. It's not
Yeah.
unspiritual to take antidepressants. It's not
Yeah.
unspiritual. Now, if you're just doing it willy nilly or you're doing it in order to avoid dealing with some specific root issues, that's a whole can of worms, but
Right.
just the stigma of
Now
like
that's why I eat. So, so that's how I deal with stress. And it's
most
not
Americans do.
healthy. Yeah.
But yeah, it's good to know, and it's good for people to hear and to see people go through and deal with it. And I think of like Johnny Erickson Tata is her whole ministry has
Mm.
been built around
Oh,
living a life of joy and purpose despite a severe bodily handicap.
since she was just a kid.
Yeah.
What,
And she's
19 or
touched
something like
so
that?
many people.
Yeah.
Who are the mental illness equivalents of Johnny Erickson Tata? That's what we need, I think, to find and to magnify those who have dealt with, and not just dealt with, but lived a life of
Yeah.
purpose and inspiration and faithful gospel obedience
Yeah.
through their mental illness. Did you read? I've
Right.
been posting from it recently, but did you read? Have you read A Quiet Mind to Suffer With?
Not yet.
It
Not yet. It's
is,
on my list. It's on my
man,
list.
it's not. It's contemplative.
Yeah.
Lexum sent it to me with a couple of books to check out, and I kind of stuck it away. I was like, well, this interests me because it was about mental
Mhm.
illness and the gospel. I was like, I'll put it, but I had some other things to read first. And when I finally got to it, I think I read it in 2 or 3 days. And it's a
Really?
thick book, but it's memoir. It's the guy's. It's almost stream of consciousness at times. Like you're
Oh, wow.
listening into his inner struggle with these, and he gives them all names. His these conditions that he deals, like he gives them titles. Um, and it is just like it rocked me reading it, but in a good way of like, oh, this is what it looks like to suffer with God and not, even when God feels absent, there's knowledge of the whole book structured around Christ has died, Christ has risen, Christ will come again. And so it's like those three movements and how
Hmm.
they fall into living with the reality of mental illness in light of Christ has died, Christ has risen, Christ will come again. It was one of the few books I read that would have a hard time telling you. I mean, there's not a plot to it. It's just a memoir of struggle. But
Right.
the reason that and Darkness is My Only Companion was another
I
one.
have that one. Yeah.
Oh, that was the same thing. This Episcopal priest, and both authors had to be institutionalized, and they talk about going and being in the psych ward or being in the treatment center and keeping your faith in the midst of that. It's so life-giving. Seeing it's life-giving in the way that Psalm 88 is life-giving, in that
Mm.
the darkest psalm in the Bible, there's no ray of hope
Yeah.
anywhere in it, but the fact that it's in the Bible to begin with lets us know
Right.
that God welcomes our struggle,
Yeah.
welcomes our illness, our brain chemistry fluctuating.
It's not very triumphalist of
No.
God to have those things in the Bible, Lamentations and Psalms, and
Yeah. Yeah.
all those pesky little things that stand in the way of prosperity gospel.
Those pesky wisdom books.
Ah, they're just, they won't make up their mind. They say this and then they say that. And what are we supposed to do? We're looking for rules here.
Right, right. Man, that was what, and spending the past couple of years in Ecclesiastes has been one of my favorite things ever because of that. Because it's just blowing up the prosperity gospel mindset completely
Oh,
and saying
yeah.
like, no, that's garbage. Like that's just not how the world works and it's not how God works.
Mhm.
Um